Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Thursday, March 26, 2020 meeting of the Clive City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Cirksena,
Here.
Councilmember Klein,
Here.
Edwards,
Here.
McCoy,
One moment. Councilman McCoy, are you there?
Here. Yep.
Judkins,
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Okay, very good. All present and accounted for. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and to all of you that may be joining us on the first ever electronic Clive City Council meeting. Obviously, in response to the coronavirus pandemic. We appreciate your participation, and also thanks in advance to the guests that we have this evening that will also be sharing with us. We're going to forego the Pledge of Allegiance, at least for right now, in these electronic meetings. But I can assure you, we will be back to saying the pledge when we're in person together. Pete, you're our lead for this evening. Are there things that you would like to share with the council and our guests in terms of operating procedure?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. 3 quick points for folks tonight. First, if you haven't already, if you would, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, click on the participant tab and on the chat tab. It should open up a window that allows you to see others who are there and whether they're muted or not, and then also messages that are being sent to everybody. If you're having any trouble getting attention and you want to speak, especially if you're a member of the public, there in the top, in the participants area, you'll see you can raise your hand, and I, the moderator, Pete DeCook, will then either message you or let the mayor know that we have a question. And then you can also see there down below that you can send me a direct message to Pete DeCook there in the chat section.
Okay, thank you, Pete.
Yep. The last point I'd make, Mayor, is the sound here is what we're really trying to keep good. And if we end up with video that's chewing up too much bandwidth, we may turn off some of these other videos that we have. And please remember we may need to, Matthew and I might need everybody to slow down a little bit so that we can get questions asked and we can record votes. Thank you.
And as far as voting, just for everyone's edification, sometimes our system takes some time as it is. It may take more time this evening. I want to thank Matthew and Pete both for all of your extra work in putting this electronic meeting together and for ensuring that it flows smoothly. I know that you both worked very hard for that, so thank you. Pete, if there's nothing else, I'm going to proceed.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
So the first item is approval of the agenda. I'm not aware of any changes.
Move approval. Second.
It's been moved by John, seconded by Eric. Is there any discussion? I can't say all those in favor say aye. So Matthew, why don't you just poll the council on this one?
Go ahead and vote.
And council members, if that wasn't clear, Matthew actually has loaded a vote here, so you should be able to use your electronic voting to cast these votes.
Susan, we're waiting on your vote. Would you like to just voice it in? Oh, as I said that, thank you.
Nice and clear. That passes 5-0 to approve the agenda. Thank you. Okay, next item is citizens presentation. This normally in a personal meeting, this would be a time where anyone present in the council chambers could speak on an item that is not currently on the agenda. And I would ask, is there anybody on the call this evening that wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Please raise your hand.
I'm not seeing any hands raised, Mayor.
Thank you. With seeing none, we're going to move forward with our first formal presentation, and it's well, this is our 2020 state legislative update from the State Representative Jennifer Conforst. And Representative, nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us under what we believe to be extenuating circumstances. So thank you again for your attendance tonight, and thank you for sharing with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. When I put this on my calendar, I did not think I would be wearing sweatpants to this meeting. So I am grateful for your flexibility and understanding and for making this possible. I think it's important. I think if it's all right, I'll just quickly update you on where things stand. Most people know that the legislature is currently suspended until April 13th, as of right now, which means that we are scheduled to return and gavel in on Monday, April 13th. And we don't know yet if that's still the case, but we've not heard otherwise. So the plan would be to go back on April 13th. We were supposed to end, I believe, on the 21st this year. So the plan would be just to, from what I understand, to go in and focus on a budget and be done. The last revenue estimating conference we had was the Friday before, or finished up, calculated numbers that finished up the Friday before everything sort of happened in terms of the markets and the virus and business closures and things. So, you know, hopefully we'll get some different numbers when we're working on the budget. We'll get more updated numbers, but that is sort of where things stand on that. And the expectation would be we would come back and do a budget, and that would be pretty much it. But we are, of course, working back in the district. We're hearing from our cities. I was glad to talk with our mayors. I've talked with a couple of you as well about things that you need, or just to sort of offer up that we're here to help as much as we can. Every day I'm posting on my social media an update of the day that sort of says where things stand. So I'd encourage you to, if you'd like to know sort of from a statewide perspective, I'll just be another voice there. I know the governor's also communicating regularly every day, and we're just trying to amplify those messages as much as we can. As of today, you know, we do know about the 145 positive cases. 41,890 people filed for unemployment last week, which is up from 2,489 the week before. And a presidential disaster declaration has been made for Iowa, and so that does help. That lifts the cap in terms of how much money can flow into the state, which is great. Not great, but a good development, I think, in these circumstances. Then, of course, last night the Senate agreed on another relief package that should go to the House shortly in Washington. So we're working closely with businesses on small business loans. The Iowa Economic Development Authority, we had a conference call with Debbie Durham, the director, yesterday, hearing about additional opportunities for businesses in terms, especially with regard to small businesses. I'm continuing to encourage additional small business grants available to small businesses, while also pushing for sole proprietorships with just one employee. For example, when the governor closed barbershops and salons, that made it difficult for sole proprietors who don't have any employees. They're not eligible for a lot of these loans or these grants. There is a grant fund available, announced yesterday, that's for targeted small businesses. We're looking for additional funding there to help those folks. So essentially, we're just daily checking in and making sure that we know what is out there, and just trying to kind of juggle all this as we go, not quite knowing what's next ever. But we're in constant communication, of course, with the governor's office. And then I will tell you that the things I've been hearing most from our constituents about are a lot of people are concerned about a shelter-in-place order being issued at a statewide level. A lot of people are concerned about small business funding and loans. And then a lot of people are wondering about schools. And today the governor did reiterate that schools she recommends schools remain closed until April 12th, which was what she had said before. She did not change that recommendation today. And I was glad to see that both the West Des Moines Community Schools and Des Moines Public Schools, the two districts that I represent, had agreed to pay workers during this extraordinary time. So we're grateful for our districts for standing up and doing that as well. But in terms of an extension of the school year, I don't know. I have a constituent in my son who's a senior in high school who is very interested to know what's going to happen for the rest of the school year, as you might imagine. We just don't know yet. I'd be happy to take any questions or hear from you what you're hearing, or if there's anything I can pass on to state leaders.
Representative, thank you, and certainly understand the times, the challenging times that we are in. You mentioned, you know, as you hear from constituents in the district about a shelter-in-place order. From what aspect are you hearing from that? Are you hearing a desire for one? Or are you hearing that there's concern about having one? Or I guess I'm curious at the feedback there.
Yep. I've been keeping track of the contacts that I've received, and about 95% have been asking for a statewide shelter-in-place order, and 5% have been asking that we don't issue one. Now, I will tell you that's probably 30 contacts, so it's not like we're talking about a flood of messages, but when it comes to the ratio, that's about the ratio that I'm getting.
Council members, question for Representative Conforst. Now, Pete, as we start to go through this process of dialogue with the council, how best to manage that so we ensure we're not talking over each other?
Mayor, I think it'll vary from agenda item to agenda item. If members of the council want to raise their hands, I can let you know that, Mayor. Or if you'd like to just ask them individually now, take them down the row, that could work as well.
Well, I'm just going to open it up. So, council members, question for the representative?
I don't remember how to raise a hand.
Well, you just spoke, so let's go with that.
Okay, Representative Conforst, this is Susan Judkins, and I'm interested in some conversation about the confirmed numbers being reported. I know of 3 people who have tested positive, but their family members are all being told that they won't be tested because they're just assumed to have the virus, but they're not being included in the numbers, even when they actually have the symptoms. So I feel quite certain that the numbers really aren't complete, but there hasn't been good conversation that I've heard in the state about that. Can you comment on that?
Thanks. That's a great question. I've also issued a question with regard to the count. You know, early on we had questions with regard to testing. There's still questions with regard to criteria for testing and who's getting tested. There was some discussion at the governor's recent press conference about confidentiality with regard to what information gets released and who reports that information. I don't have a clear answer on that yet, but I will see what I can do to find out. I think it's safe to say that the numbers that we're getting, not through any nefarious purposes, are not the true numbers in the state. I'm not trying to say anybody's misrepresenting. I'm just trying to say that this is hard to count, and I believe that it's safe to say that the numbers are higher. I'd like to get a better handle on it as well. So let me run that up to Flagpole and see what I can find out. But I do know that that's been a conversation that our leadership has had with the governor's office lately with regard to both testing and reporting of the numbers.
Mayor, Councilman Weaver has a question.
Ted, go ahead.
Jennifer, thanks for being here. Do you know, is there any discussion about that once we get through this, and clearly, obviously, everyone's priority is to get through it, but when we get past the worst part, obviously we can't wait till it's completely done. So are they talking about how to transition back such that, you know, and I'm just throwing this out there, I have no idea, but, you know, where you would request that people 60 and older stay at home, but younger start going back to work? Or is there any discussion about that type of transition plan and getting back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not privy to all the conversations that the governor is having with regard to that, but I do know that there has been conversation about it flowing much like the shutdown has flowed, sort of reverse engineering that, and maybe opening up retail first, or I mean, I have no idea, but I've heard conversations about, and also the one you proposed about, certain at-risk groups staying home more regularly, but no plans in place yet. I think that what most folks want, I think, is just a switch to flip. And I know that's not what you're proposing, but that sure would be great. But I think it is going to be, as you mentioned, kind of staggered more when we do this. And I believe that everyone wants to get back to being able to continue our lives as quickly as possible while also protecting public health. So I know that they're talking about it. I don't know that we have a plan. I mean, I'm not saying there's like no plan. I'm just saying I don't think we've got necessarily something that's publicly available or available to at least members of my caucus, a plan of how to roll this out.
Thank you.
Other questions, council?
Councilman Edwards has raised his hand.
John, please go ahead.
According to the Wall Street Journal, the United States now leads in coronavirus cases, more than 82,000. We lead the world. Do we know what will trigger the governor to make a determination of sheltering in place?
That's a great question. She was asked about that again yesterday and then again today. She has metrics that she's following, and she's filled out some of those metrics with regard to the number of hospitalizations, number of beds available, ICU beds, et cetera. We don't have a full picture of what those metrics are, but she's following them and working closely with the Department of Public Health. But I'm not aware of what exactly they are. She did say yesterday that she's not comfortable sharing them fully because there's a lot that goes into this decision, and she doesn't want to issue sort of a checklist. But I do know that that's a conversation that she's having daily. I know that this is something that I've raised with her, a lot of people have raised with her, is about this concern about flattening that curve, and one of the ways to do that being sheltering in place. To be fair, she did, as she changed things today with closing retail establishments, getting rid of or postponing elective surgeries and elective dental work. She did say today in her press conference that she feels that that is getting us closer to accomplishing the same goals as shelter in place. So that would be her answer to how we're working toward the goal of flattening the curve.
Council, other questions?
No other questions, Your Honor.
Well, Representative Khan, first, thank you again for being with us. I know you have just a lot to do when you get back, and it's tough only 30 days out of the session. So thanks in advance for your great work. Consensus number on the budget that you'd like to see?
Oh, I'd like to have a lot more information before we get to knowing what the budget is. I mean, I'm very nervous saying any numbers without targets that include this COVID situation. So I'm not ready to give a number.
I understand a lot of that, and I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
No, I know.
Well, very good. Again, thank you for being with us. Godspeed as you get back into session, and please let us know how we can help.
Please do reach out if there's anything I can do, with regard to Medicaid questions or unemployment questions, anything like that. I'm getting a lot of those, and I'm happy to pass them along. So thank you all for your good work. I know you're facing it every day as well. So we'll get through this. We'll do it, and I appreciate everyone's help.
We'll look forward to being in touch. Thank you, Representative.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we'll move to consent items.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to action items now. We have two public hearings. The first public hearing is regarding the 2020 arterial PCC rehabilitation project. And Matthew, did we post appropriate public notice?
Yes, Your Honor. It was published March 13th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Thanks, Matthew. Matt, you're leading this one.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you tonight, we have a bid that was taken regarding the arterial concrete patching project that we issued. As the council will recall, we issued a residential street patching project earlier at the last council meeting and did award that bid. The staff received only one bid for the arterial street project that was noted in your packet, and it was a relatively high bid, almost 40% over the engineer's estimate of $438,000 for the base bid. And at this time, due to the uncertainty in the market, we thought that factored into the bids we received last Thursday. And so our advice would be to the council to reject this bid, and then staff would formulate a rebidding schedule for later in the spring, early summer, pending the how the virus, the COVID-19 process goes. So with the actions that the staff would recommend, we have a few actions on the agenda. Obviously, receiving of the bids per normal process that you would be doing, but we gave kind of a 2-action step under letter item B, whether to approve the contract or what we're recommending, a resolution rejecting all bids. And if the council decides to reject all bids, then you will not need to act on letter item C, which is approving plans and specs. We'll be bringing back new plans and specs for you with a new bidding schedule. So that would be my recommendation to you, Your Honor.
I would move to close the public hearing if there are no comments.
Second.
Been moved by John, seconded by Michael to close the public hearing. Before we do, is there anybody here to speak on this item?
Mayor, I do not.
Hearing none, will the council please vote?
Don't have a vote from Eric yet. There it goes.
Yeah, it just came up.
Passes 5-0 to close the public hearing.
Move to receive the bids.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Michael. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? That passes 4 in favor with, it passes 4-1 essentially.
I'd move that we pass the resolution rejecting all bids.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Michael. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That item passes 5-0, negating the need for item C as Matt instructed. Thank you. Okay, the next public hearing item is regarding asbestos abatement at 1260 Northwest 78th Street. Matthew, did we post appropriate public notice?
Yes, Your Honor. A public hearing notice was published March 13th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Thank you, Matthew. Matt, you got it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you tonight is an action for asbestos abatement associated with one of our flood-prone property buyouts. This property was acquired through our FEMA grant program. As per their FEMA requirements, we need to hold a public hearing for awarding any kind of asbestos abatement and then eventually the demolition of the building. We received one bid for this asbestos abatement. That bid was within the estimate of cost, and staff would recommend that the council award this asbestos abatement contract to Site Services Incorporated for $2,350, and staff would be happy to answer any questions.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric to close the public hearing. Any discussion? And before we do, is there anybody here to speak on this item? Hearing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0 to close the public hearing.
Move the resolution approving plans and specs.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0.
Move to receive the bid.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0.
Move the resolution awarding the contract to Site Services, Inc. in the amount of $2,350.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, item number 3 is utility rate adjustments for fiscal year 21. Item A is the second consideration of ordinance number 1089 pertaining to water rates. Matt?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will cover all three ordinances. So at the last council meeting following the approval of the next fiscal year budget, staff presented the ordinance amendments for the water rates, sewer rates, and stormwater rates corresponding to that budget. What you have before you is the second consideration. The includes a water rate increase of 3%, the sewer utility increase. I believe actually was in your packet was a typo. I believe that is also 3% as well. And then the stormwater ordinance is increase would be 10%. So we did have some typos in there. I'm just noticing in the packet, so I apologize for that. It would be 3%, 3%, and 10% on those rate increases, similar to what we had at the first reading. We did not receive any comments regarding these rate increases, and staff would recommend approval.
So now we need to move each of these individually. Trust, correct?
I'd move that ordinance number 1089, having been considered by the council, be voted on for passage prior to its final adoption.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? Passes 5-0. That's the second reading.
Move that ordinance number 1090, having been considered by the council, be voted on for passage prior to its final adoption.
Second.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0.
Move that ordinance number 1091, having been considered by the council, be voted on for passage prior to its final adoption.
Second.
Moved by Michael, seconded by Susan. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? And that item passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item number 4. This is regarding the general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020A, and general obligation urban renewal public safety facility bonds, Series 2020B. This is a public hearing. Matthew, did we post appropriate public notice?
Yes, Your Honor. The notice of sale was published March 16th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Thank you, Matthew. Matt, you have it.
I will start off, Your Honor, and then turn it over to Suzanne from PFM to share some good news that we have from this morning. So the city had 2 bond issues for sale on the market this morning, the 2020A series and the 2020B series. The 2020A is associated with capital improvement projects, our regular kind of CIP bond issue of $2.2 million, and we received 7 bids on that. And then the 2020B issue, which is a more sizable issue associated with the public safety facilities, and that was a project or a par amount of $5.4 million. We received 8 bids on that. And then with that, I'd like to turn it over to Suzanne to talk a little bit about the bids and what we saw and our recommendations. And then also the council received some of the bid documentation that we received this morning here previously by email, but happy to talk through those between Suzanne and I and the council if you have any questions or comments. So with that, I will turn it over to Suzanne for some further comments.
All right, thanks, Matt. So the 2020A bonds, as Matt mentioned, were the 10-year CIP bonds. First of all, let me congratulate the city. Moody's Investor Service did affirm the city's AAA rating, which is the highest rating available. And so we went out to market with the AAA rating on both series of bonds. The A series to 10 years GOCIP bonds received 7 bids from over 30 different firms. As everybody's been reading in the headlines, it's been an extremely tumultuous market. We've been on a bit of a roller coaster ride. Rates hit bottom on March 9th. And by March 20th, there were a whole 200 basis points higher, or 2% higher between March 9th and March 20th. And this week, rates have come down over 150 basis points, or 1.5%. So to know insight of our own, we were very fortunate in how things have recovered this week. I think hearing about the stimulus from our federal government has really helped stabilize the markets. We're being told that the bank qualified market, which is what these bonds were, they were issued as bank qualified, which means you issue 10 million in a calendar year or less, really was a benefit. And to issue AAA bonds as bank qualified is kind of the unicorn. That's the bonds that everybody wants. And so I think that helped with the performance. The range of the TIC that we received, 1.87% was the winning bid from Robert W. Baird and Syndicate, with the last place bid being all the way to 238. And so, as I've talked about, the further apart those numbers are, just talks to the uncertainty in the market. There's still quite a bit of uncertainty out there. And looking at the second place bid, right, that's the second test that I always look at, is the first place bid was at a 187. The second place bid was at a 199. So that's the benefit of us holding those competitive sales and allowing the underwriters to give us their best. As I mentioned, the winning bid, and so, the 2020A bonds also are the ones that are paid for by your debt service levy, and the city had approved a pre-levy that goes into the city's debt service levy tax rate. And so these bonds were resized after the fact for 2 things: one, to match the pre-levy, to match the tax levy amount that was approved in your budget, and also to maintain the bank qualified status. So both the A series and the B series ended up being resized just slightly to remove any premium and to keep bank qualified status. And in the planning process, PFM had estimated a 1.99%. Coming into this week, I wasn't sure if that was going to be sufficient, and I'm just thrilled that we're coming in at a 187 today. So, are there any questions with that?
Questions, council?
So do we need to close the public hearing?
We do, yes.
Oh, so moved.
There is no public hearing associated with, we've already held the public hearing for these issues. We just need to note on bond issues that we published notice.
And we
There's no.
Very good.
Yeah, and so, you know, one of the things that I'll just briefly mention is that we did have a plan B coming into today, as Matt had shared with everyone. We were seeing earlier this week with some other sales that bank loans were offering much lower interest rates. That wasn't the case today. The bank loans actually came in higher than what the market was able to perform. So the agenda item C and D will not be needed today. PFM is recommending that the city approve the winning bid received from Robert W. Baird at a true interest cost of 1.8773%.
I would move that resolution.
Second.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion?
Hey, Mayor, I did have a quick question, whether it's Matt or Suzanne. How does, I mean, obviously that's a great interest rate. How does that compare to some of our past bond issues?
Let me pull and look. Luckily, I'm working in my basement, so I have my computer and can pull up what you, what you got. So looking at, let's see, final numbers. So as an example, the 2019 C, this was street improvement bonds. They were double tax exempt. These were issued over 10 years and they were at a TIC of 1.82%. So I would equate that to your 1.87. For your 10-year CIP, it's the same term that we did for those urban renewal bonds, maybe a little bit longer. So very, very close to where we were last fall. Let me go back and look at the B bonds and see where we were for final numbers for the B. I feel like the B was the longer. And so the B bonds went out the full term, just like the B series today, and we were at 215. And so, and tonight we're at 224. So the longer out you go, it doesn't surprise me that the rates are just a little bit higher right now, but not very much higher considering all the uncertainty we've seen.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, based off the current environment we're in, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I was thrilled today. I had no idea. I mean, you know, we go out and we hope for the best, but literally in the last 3 days, we recovered 25 basis points on Tuesday, 65 basis points on Wednesday, another 60 basis points today. So very good news.
That's really good news. Appreciate that effort. This is huge for us at a critical time, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's been moved and seconded for item A. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0.
And for the B series, this is the obviously phase 2 for the public safety facility. These are full 19-year, almost a 20-year term. 8 bids on these, which surprised me that we had an extra bidder. I think the double state tax exemption brought the extra bidder to the table today because these are urban renewal bonds. 8 bids from 32 firms. The TICs on these ranging from 2.24 all the way up to a 2.90. In this case, the winning bid came from Northland Securities out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Originally through the budget process and through our sort of, you know, our sale detail process, PFM had estimated a 242, and I'm pleased to report that we came in at a 224. The cover bid was at a 234. So again, we're seeing like that 10 basis point spread between the winning bid and the cover bid, which just reinforces the fact that, you know, we want to do these competitive sales. Any questions for me on the B?
Questions, council?
I'd move the resolution awarding the Series 2020 B bond issue to Northland Securities, Inc.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? Item passes 5-0. Item C.
Item C and D will, the staff would recommend the council does not need to consider with the awards of A and B.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And thank you to our friends from PFM. I am interested to know, and maybe you can't tell me, but just with our AAA bond status, what do you think these rates would have been?
You mean under normal market, like before we saw some of the market uncertainty? Or you mean?
Well, or even now. So take a same in this market, had we not had AAA bond status, what do you think the rate might have been? Do you have a range in mind?
So the value of BQ and non-BQ is a little bit skewed right now just because a lot of the tier one investors, this is a complicated answer, but a lot of the tier one investors, you heard about the outflows. Everybody was taking their cash out of municipal bonds because they wanted the cash, and that's all of your tier one investors, and that definitely impacts the non-bank qualified market much more than the bank qualified market. The bank qualified market is primarily banks who have cash, who aren't in a hurry to, you know, pull it out of munis. They see this as a good investment time. So the value of the AAA, oh gosh, it was tremendous. And I think the value of, this was Matt's recommendation to stay BQ this year, which turned out to be the absolute right decision to make for the city. I'd say it's usually 50 basis points, especially on the 20-year bonds. I would say right now it might even be 75 basis points. Two Iowa cities PFM sold bonds with earlier this week. Part of it was before the recovery, but just so you know, another city got a 358 on Monday. And then a different city on Wednesday got, was it a 246? So you're at a 224 with longer term bonds. So that's really saying something. Part of that is the recovery, not exactly apples to apples. Those were both AA2 issuers. And so the value of your AAA was tremendous and the value of being bank qualified was tremendous.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks so much. Huge difference for us. Again, thanks for your good work, Matt. Appreciate your help there. Very good. We'll move to item number 5, which is regarding the pay request number 4 for RDG Planning and Design.
Move approval.
Second.
It's moved by John, seconded by Eric. Is there further discussion?
Your Honor, I'll be abstaining.
Thank you, Councilmember Judkins. Any other discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote? Item passes 4 in favor with 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, item 6 is regarding a pay request number 6 to RDG Planning and Design for the Westgate Parkway Bridge enhancements.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Further discussion?
Your Honor, I will be abstaining again.
Thank you, Councilmember Judkins. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, will the council please vote?
Weaver, you going to make a motion?
And that's passes 4-1 abstention.
John keeps beating me.
Thank you. Okay, the last action item number 7 is a resolution approving amendment number 2, RDG Planning and Design Westgate Parkway Bridge enhancement.
I'll
Move
second.
approval.
It's been moved by Weaver.
Moved by Ted, seconded by John. Further hysterics or discussion?
Your Honor, I will be abstaining.
Thank you, Susan. Any other discussion?
No.
Hearing none, will the council please vote? And that passes 4 with 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to reports tonight. Pete, let's start with you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be very brief. I'd encourage, as you get questions from constituents about how the city is responding to the ongoing virus pandemic, to send them directly to cityofclive.com. And our policy has remained unchanged since the last time we all spoke. We're taking our direction straight from our emergency operations centers leaders and public health officials with Polk County and with the state of Iowa as well. So throughout the week, I've been updating our list of changes to city services like access to our buildings, but then also trying to put some other useful information up as well. And I want to give a special shout out to the Clive Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Both organizations have done a wonderful job stepping up quickly to poll their members to see how this massive disruption is affecting business, and also get a sense for the things that might be they might need in the future. The number one thing that many of them want folks to know is that they are open, and many of them are able to safely still serve at curbside or with delivery or other safe means that are acceptable according to the state proclamations that have been made by the governor. So if you are into hashtags, I encourage you to start following the hashtag Clive Pride, and also check out the Chamber's Facebook page, which we're sharing on our Facebook page as well, to see how a number of Clive businesses are being really resilient, and along with our neighborhoods as well.
Pete, thank you. Council, questions for Pete?
I have one.
Go ahead, Susan.
I'm just wondering if we're having to play any enforcement role as the expansion unfolds on what is considered essential or what is required to stay closed.
I'll defer to Matt on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. We did, following the first governor proclamation with the closure of the bars and restaurants and fitness centers, we did receive, the Clive Police Department did receive direction from the Department of Public Safety in terms of how to enforce with simple misdemeanors being the charge for those businesses being open. We haven't received or had any issues where we've had to issue any of those kinds of arrests or citations. At this point, we've had cooperation amongst our businesses as far as the Clive PD has experienced.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt, this is Eric. Quick question. If there would be a shelter in place put out by the governor, would the Clive PD or Clive Resources have any part of enforcing that?
Typically, yes. What we would see is a similar to the directions we received from the Department of Public Safety. They would issue down similar orders in terms of asking Clive PD to do that enforcement. That would be required as part of state code. And so we would be part of that enforcement. Again, the approach that we've taken is on a case-by-case basis. We haven't had any issues to this point with businesses, but we would also take that under consideration if there was a further order and how that would be enforced and what would be practically able to be enforced. And of course, there would need to be a lot of direction provided from the governor and the state in terms of who's allowed to be out. Is there any kind of certification or paperwork that folks need to have? This has occurred in other countries in that way. When those shelters in place have occurred, we would need that direction from the state before we'd be able to appropriately enforce that.
Thank you.
These are good questions. I guess I would just comment on the experience so far in terms of the communication of this team and our staff, which I believe has been phenomenal. Staff has worked really hard to really think through critically every aspect of every what-if scenario we can think of in terms of keeping our residents as safe as possible and providing the critical services that are our responsibility. And the communication with council has been outstanding as well. So I think if we continue to do that, this is a moving target, and I think it's going to continue to change based on what I'm seeing. That's just an opinion. That's my opinion, but I think it's going to continue to change. And with our ongoing communication, we'll be ready to take the steps that we need to take. Eric, to your point, should a shelter-in-place order be issued by the governor, and we would certainly at that point on that lead be very willing to do what we need to do to keep our residents as safe as possible. This is good questions and good discussions. Anything else on this, or anything else for Pete while we have Pete? Okay, seeing none, let's move down the line here. I'm going to just try to envision this in my head. Ted, you're next.
No report, Mayor. I have a couple questions for Matt, but I'll defer that till his report.
Okay, very good. Incidentally, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard you say envision Ted, and that scared me.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Your Honor, everyone has said they can hear you well.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm getting a shaky signal where I'm at, so that's why I'm asking the question. Okay, so let's move to Eric next. Eric?
No report, Mayor.
All right, thank you, council member. John?
Well, I do have some things to share. First, along with good news, the recommendation will go to the full MPO for us to get $1 million award for the 3580 interchange project. So that'll be good news. Presumably MPO will approve that. So I wanted to let everyone know that that was coming. Secondly, and I think Councilman McCoy may have more to say about this, but Metro Waste haulers are no longer picking up large items at the curb. They suspended those operations. So we will need to get that out to everyone so that they don't put those sofas out on the curb expecting they will disappear. Yard waste is scheduled to pick up the first week in April. Hopefully that will continue without any delay. But the mayor's cleanup and such, that will be dependent on, I think, resumption of normal activities. So that's all I have.
It's good information, John. Thank you, and nice to hear that we have that unanimous support at the MPO level for what's going to be a massive project at 35 in Hickman. Great news. Thank you. Questions for John, council? Hearing none, I'm going to go right past myself to Susan.
Well, the one thing I have to report relates to discussion among watershed management authorities and with the Department of Natural Resources and some others. And there is projection for some significant flooding later this year or later this spring. And so concerns being raised about how to manage that during a time of a pandemic. So while it may be more localized in Clive, we can imagine for some other parts of the state just what a challenge that will be. So then beyond that, when we get to Matt, I'm interested in whether we're hearing anything from Clive Community Services for special needs. So that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Susan. Michael.
Just to add one item to the Metro piece. Hopefully you all saw the article that Metro Waste Authority was recognized as the top employer for employer support of the Guard and Reserve. We got the highest award in the state for that one as an agency, the Pro Patria Award. So hats off to the board and the staff for supporting our folks that were deployed and overseas. And that just came down given by the governor to us. So that was a positive story that ran in the on Channel 13 a couple nights ago. We need a little positive, right?
Congratulations, Mike, on that, and more to come. Keep raising the bar. So thank you. With that, Madam Counsel, anything for the good of the order?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Matt, we'll go to you.
All right, I have a number of items, and I know I probably have some questions. So I want to start off with some additional COVID-19 related impacts. First off, as the council will recall, there was a public hearing set for Deerfield rezoning at the next council meeting on April 9th. Staff has discussed this with the developer, considering the current circumstances of how we're needing to run these meetings virtually. They have agreed to delay that consideration. We received a letter from the developer this week indicating that delay. So we'll follow up on the actual procedures that we'll need to do at the next meeting, but likely opening and closing that public hearing, a new process. They won't have to do anything on their end. It's just more procedural for us for likely May, depending on how long this lasts in terms of this current format. But we felt it was appropriate to make sure we have full neighborhood engagement and our normal process for that, and they also agreed with that voluntarily. So that just wanted to give an update on that. Also, number of things that were happening at the staff level, as you can imagine, this week. I will be sharing with the council tomorrow a fuller draft of our pandemic response plan that includes specific departmental response plans for every department. And then Roxanne and I continue to work on some additional human resources employee policies, especially as it relates to the recently approved Families First Coronavirus Act at the federal level. So we will need to be incorporating that. That will go effective April 1st. So I know the council has seen what the temporary policies that we put in place. Well, we will plan to present you a more formal policy adoption related to those temporary policies, including that federal language, likely at your next council meeting as a part of that. So that will also get added to the pandemic plan, one of the later sections. So we'll be sharing with you shortly. As a part of that, those efforts, decision was made. The mayor and I conferred on this yesterday to make the decision to go ahead and move forward with the Public Works and Parks staff. We are going to go to a shift. We're calling it a split shift format, and a number of other metro cities are doing this as well, where half of the crew will be on site working and the other half of the crew will be at home and on call starting next week for both Parks and Public Works. We're doing this in a way to kind of minimize any potential exposure. If we had an exposure of a crew, that it would be limited to only a small amount of staff versus the entire staff. And so with the minimum services, particularly on the Public Works side, essential services that we need to maintain related to our utility systems and responding to any emergencies, we felt this was the most appropriate next step to take.
Matt, excuse me, Councilman Weaver has a question.
Sure, Councilmember Weaver.
No, that's okay. I can wait. I can wait till the end. That's okay. Sorry.
Okay. Yep, and yeah, because I'll run through a lot of these, and I'm sure you'll have some questions on them. And so that is a strategy that we're going to be employing starting next week. And so essentially, we'll have half the crews on one week and then off on call at home for emergency needs the next week. We'll just be rotating that through. We're also rotating staff through City Hall. Most staff are working remotely, but those that are coming in we're rotating them, so they may be at home working and then in the office for a few days and then at home. So we're trying to be cognizant of that with particularly key leadership positions. For example, Pete worked remotely all week this week while I was in the office. We'll be rotating a little bit of that with key leadership positions as well. So a number of things that are happening there, and I'll have a lot more details for you on that tomorrow. We are continuing to move forward with a few construction projects that were already bid. For example, the Westgate Bridge project. But one project in particular that I'd like to talk to the council about and get your feedback is I made the decision to have the Clark Street contractor hold on starting that project, which obviously that's in a neighborhood and impacting the neighborhood as a part of the Clark Street reconstruction project, which also includes utilities. That contractor is ready to start, willing to start. In fact, will be incurring costs if I continue to delay him. So I wanted to get some feedback from the council in terms of their thoughts. And again, you don't need to share them with me right now, but I would love your feedback, and I'll be posing this question again tomorrow just to get your thoughts on whether or not you have a comfort level of moving forward with a construction project in the neighborhood. My hesitation last week was not knowing if there was going to be a shelter in place or a scenario where we would have everybody in their homes and then having construction projects happening right outside their door. Just wasn't real comfortable with that initially, not knowing where this is going to go over the next couple of weeks. We can always continue to delay. There may be some small change order costs associated with that for that delay, because they were anticipating actually starting the beginning of this week. So that's kind of a unique scenario, as well as a lot of unique scenarios that we're experiencing with this virus. And so I wanted to mention that and see if there's at least any initial questions or feedback or comments on the Clark Street project scenario.
Ed, did you have a question on that? If you don't, I do. But I want to
No,
let you
go
know.
ahead, Mayor.
Okay. So Matt, and I appreciate the critical thinking there. What will it cost us if we continue to delay? Because the problem is we're going to have no line of sight probably for a while on a shelter-in-place order potential. So what does it cost us?
Initially, we're thinking it could be as potentially upwards of $7,500 per week. We haven't confirmed that number at this point, but we will follow up with hard numbers on that. Not substantial dollars at this point when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar street project, but there is costs that we would incur for. We already initiated mobilization on that project and then told them to stop. And so we're also reviewing our contract language on this as well to see what flexibility we have. So we'll be following up with more details on that, but just wanted to kind of give a high level what we're initially hearing.
Conversely, are we awarding them or rewarding them, I should say, for performance and early finish as part of the agreement?
That wasn't included in this particular contract, just due to the number of phases that we have. We did this one a little bit differently, knowing that we were going to have the utility components with it versus when we did the 103rd and Lincoln that didn't have the utility components with it. It just had pavement. So we don't have those performance targets, because part of our thought in the delay is that there's the potential that we may not get the other phases done in this construction season, which is fine, that we just go into 2021. But that's kind of things that staff is weighing right now as we engage with the contractor.
Other questions, council?
Well,
Matt, this is Eric. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you. I guess my biggest fear would be, and I certainly understand the logic where you're coming from and also the cost associated. My biggest fear would be that, we would get the road completely tore up, and as we prepare for implementation of the rebuilding, and who knows if this pandemic would come out as far as how it would affect their labor on that. And, a work stoppage in the middle of that would be very difficult for the residents on Clark Street right there. just wonder if we've looked at, you know, other mitigating resources from the contractor on how they would address a situation like that.
Yes, and those, exactly that, Eric. Those are the, Councilmember Klein, those are the things that we're looking into right now. And so I'm hoping to have a more complete picture for you here very soon that we can make some decisions off of. But those are the things that we're looking at, because I had the same concerns as, you know, we might be able to have the good weather and get work done, but if there is a, you know, significant spread or
yeah,
shelter-in-place orders, and we just got streets torn up or we just got some utilities exposed, I would just hate to be in a situation where then that's all of a sudden paused for a month, and then you're worried about, you know, especially with a lot of those kinds of projects, things get hit. You hope that things don't get hit, but whether it be telecom or other things, just with people having to be in their homes. So, we were just nervous on a number of fronts, and part of the reason we made that decision.
I guess I have a question for Christina as far as maybe the language in the contract. I know personally my wife is working on a convention this summer and wondering whether that will come off. And so she's wondering about a force majeure clause in that contract. I mean, which would be better for us? I mean, to stop it now until things improve, or what?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We're dealing with that legal theory on a hourly basis right now. Of course, Professor Edwards, you told me I'd never have to worry about that theory when I was in law school. But that aside, I have not looked at the contract. I would be cautious about triggering that provision just because it's been, 100 years since we've seen that litigated. Second, in most municipal contracts, the best outcome is negotiation between the parties about a mutual resolution. So I applaud Matt's approach here. And yes, we can certainly look at those triggers. It is not an uncommon question and uncommon notice right now across the industry.
Mom. Hey, Mom. Well, definitely a lot to look at on this. And Matt, please keep us informed. There's just a lot that we don't know, and these circumstances are unprecedented. So I don't know what the remedies are if we get into the middle of a contract or into the middle of a project, a work stoppage, and then and we're having to stop it because of a national pandemic. That gets pretty interesting. So I'm glad you're bringing this up tonight. I think this is really, really important, as you have and staff and the council have put a lot of work into framing this project with the involvement of our residents over an extended period of time. So a lot's at stake here. Understand we want to do it right, and communication will be the key. So we'll look forward to updates from you on that topic.
Yeah, and I want to further, just in terms of the communications, both public works staff and the engineering folks and Pete have been in regular communication. We've been sharing communications with the neighborhood to make sure they're informed with the decisions that we made, and that it's going to temporarily impact it. But we're going to dig further into this one, and as we've talked about, there's a lot of interesting things being reviewed that haven't been reviewed in a long time with some of these scenarios. That's the only project that I can note, capital project, that I have concerns about. Obviously, I mentioned the Westgate project earlier. Our residential street patching, concrete street patching project that's been let and awarded. Don't have any concerns there because that's merely just panel replacement as our typical. And we'll have a few other projects coming up later in the year that we'll be able to know more. But at this point, not really too concerned about any other construction projects. Thankfully, we're relatively early in the year, where on the public infrastructure side, we're not completely ramped up yet, but we were getting there. So we will keep an eye on all of those. Related to that, Your Honor, if I could go a little further on this too, is at a staff level, we've already started doing kind of a financial review of current projects, whether they're planning projects or capital projects or capital equipment purchases. We've started a dialogue there. Joyce and I have been talking a little bit about looking at certain expenditures of whether we can be holding on those here temporarily till we learn more. As you saw, the governor last week had allowed in her declaration a waiver for any property tax payment penalties, not the taxes themselves, but penalties and interest on lack of payment. Of course, those are due at the end of March, and that is a major revenue source, obviously, for the city. We receive two big revenue chunks each year in the fall and spring in terms of property tax payments. We don't know how that will impact the city in terms of revenue. What we'll see from the county, but we're being cautious, obviously, with expenses at this time outside of any COVID-related response. We're starting to track those expenses as a part of the disaster declaration that the president made for the state of Iowa. We are tracking those for potential reimbursement. Already started that process, but just doing a general financial review. We know some of our planning projects are going to be impacted by this in the short term, just because of the that was going to be associated with those, particularly the District 1 plan, and then the Water Resources Master Plan, and also the university plan that we're working on with the city of West Des Moines. Those are all going to be impacted because of the difficulty to do public engagement at this point. So just wanted to make sure that the council heard and saw that we are doing some reviews on those financials. And then also there'll be some impact, obviously some strategic planning action items that we've been working on in terms of potential delays in those, but we'll be following up with that as we get a bigger list and a picture for the council on those. The last thing that I wanted to mention.
Matt, can I just pause for just a moment? I'm having one small technical issue. Christina wants to speak, and Eric, I can see that or Councilman, I can see I'm getting a little feedback on your microphone. So one moment, please.
This is legal counsel. I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, I I apologize. I just saw a note.
Nope. Oh. Yep, he covered it. Thank you.
Very good.
And the last thing I wanted to mention, Your Honor, and then be happy to answer questions, is Todd Seaman, last day, at least present here physically in Clive, was Tuesday. He is joining us. He's a part of the meeting right now from Tennessee. Obviously, this isn't the way we wanted to have the kind of the retirement party for Todd. We had a lot of things planned in recognition for him during this meeting for his 6 years of service to our community, and really yeoman's work in terms of the taking two departments, library and Parks and Rec department, combining them together in the Leisure Services department, and just really thankful for Todd's leadership and working through with the staff of how we did that combination of departments, and just a valuable the indebtedness that this community has and this organization has to Todd's work with the staff, and then moving things like the Greenbelt Master Plan and other key initiatives forward. I just wanted to be sure, and I know Todd's on the call here tonight, to give him an opportunity to say a few words, and give the mayor and council an opportunity to recognize his 6 years of service. And he received his gift from the staff. It was a little bobblehead of Todd with a bike that we'll share a photo of here tomorrow in my weekly report, but wanted to give Todd an opportunity to say a few words.
Thanks, Matt. Well, I guess all of you took a risk 6.5 years ago to try something new and put two departments together and create new leisure services. I want to thank you all for taking a risk on me and allowing me the opportunity to lead that organization. We've come a long ways in 6 years. I've accomplished a lot of goals, and I'm confident Richard's going to be able to move that department on to bigger and better things after I'm gone. I've shared this with a couple of you, and I just want to make sure you all hear it, but in 32 years of public service, I've never worked with a more supportive elective body than yourselves. You get the balance, that quality of life is just as important as other municipal services that cities provide, and you don't just give it rhetoric, you actually back it up with resources, and action. And I truly believe that's what makes Clive special. I know you're going to have a lot of challenges going forward, but I just hope you're able to keep that balance in mind when you're making future decisions after we get through this crisis. But thank you all very much. It's been great fun working with you all, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Well, Todd, thank you. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. Todd, thank you. Can't thank you enough. To your point, absolutely correct. When we thought of this path, this strategy of combining departments, it was somewhat of an experiment, and it took us several years to get there. But I think everybody was resolved to ensure that we did it and that we did it right. And you were the one that helped us to make it right, to distinguish us amongst our neighbors and other programs in the state of Iowa. So without a doubt, your service and your friendship have been very much appreciated here. Sorry, it's shorter than I'd like it to be. I'll be honest with you, because you've done great work for us. But we wish you Godspeed. We wish you health for you and your lovely bride, and strength and health in your new home. Council members, anybody else have comments?
Yeah, I just echo that as well, Todd. You're going to be very much missed. You did a great job with us, and we all very much value what you did for us, and certainly wish you the best, and same to your wife and her health. So just have a great retirement, and stay in touch.
I will. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say something, Michael McCoy.
Michael.
Todd said it was taking a risk on him, and I was fortunate enough to work with him in, Todd, the 90s, mid-90s.
Yeah, a lifetime ago.
Right. And when he came up as an option, it was just an easy one for me. He was no risk. He did great in West Des Moines, and he did fantastic for us. And for that, I want to thank him for the years he's put up with me both in West Des Moines and Clive. And yeah, the best for you and your wife.
Thanks.
Well, I don't want to
Todd,
get. Go ahead.
John, go ahead. Your turn.
I don't want to get too repetitive, but I've worked a lot with Todd in the last 6.5 years, and he's just had a phenomenal influence on both departments. It's been great to work with him. The vision and the way he's able to work with both staffs and bring them together and achieve the results that he's achieved have just been phenomenal. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Hey, Todd, it's Eric. One of the things I think has been a hallmark of your tenure is leadership. And you talked a little about bringing the two departments together, which really is a huge deal. And those of us involved really understand the task that it was and the leadership that it took to bring those together. The other thing I'd really like to congratulate you on is your forward and progressive thinking as far as investing in our parks and investing in the future. And it's that type of progressive and forward thinking that is difficult to find out there. And I really want to congratulate you on those two attributes. We thank you for your service. You did an outstanding job. And I echo the mayor's thoughts. Wish you could have had you for a little bit, for as long as you wanted here. But thanks again. Enjoy your retirement, Todd.
Thank you.
Well, and I'll chime in and say, not only have you done a great job in working with your departments, but you've had a broad view of how it interfaces with everything else, including some of Clive's flooding concerns. So thank you. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you continue to have more of that in Tennessee.
Thank you.
If Your Honor, if I can wrap up, we're hoping that we can have Todd back in Iowa at some point, maybe this summer, and have a more formal retirement get together, and definitely get a chance to do that in person here in the future. And I know this week spending a lot of time with Richard, who started on Monday, and you know, in the midst of all this, we got a lot of good work done and a lot of great onboarding that's happened already this week. And Todd will be continuing to do that and chiming in on some Zoom calls here over the next few days through the end of March to keep with that transition, and we'll be working on that. But I couldn't have asked for a better director who's retiring and a better director who's coming in to lead the organization, the Leisure Services Department, into its next chapter, which is, as this council has heard from me many times, is really about execution on a lot of the planning and a lot of the direction that you've provided to staff in terms of what you want to see in the green belts and reinvestment in our park spaces, and then some new park spaces out west. So really happy to have Richard on board to lead us through that, and Todd is putting him in a great position to be successful.
Matt, Councilman Klein has a question.
No, I already addressed that.
Thank you.
Well, Todd, to sum it all up, I think we're saying that you're very much appreciated. Don't be a stranger to us. Hopefully, Matt, to your point, we can have an appropriate send-off for you later on once things clear off and get you settled in your new home. And again, our best to you. Anything else, Council, on this one?
I just say be careful what you wish for, because I said all along I didn't want a big fuss, and this whole pandemic thing is, you know, kind of going all overboard. But I guess it won't be much of a send-off party now.
Well, maybe we can make up for it later.
Yep.
Matt, anything else for the council?
Other than if the council has any questions on anything that hasn't been addressed yet.
Councilman Weaver has a question.
Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt. So do we as a council need to be thinking about or be better prepared for with respect to the personal protective equipment? You know, we may have enough now, but, you know, looking forward for our fire and police staff, is there anything we need to do at our level to ensure that they have the PPE that they may need going forward?
So there's not at this point. There's a lot of things that are already happening at the county EOC level. So Chief Rowe, in particular, which is the department that at most needs the PPE equipment, he is doing a great job of tracking our inventory on a daily basis and providing those updates to me. But at the same time, we're also have made requests for PPE at the county level. There has been some identification of stockpiles that the state has for first responders and healthcare. Now it's just a matter of them finding appropriate ways to apportion that out. And so I don't know if Chief Rowe, you want to speak at all to that further, but we definitely feel like we're covered at this point, and then getting the appropriate requests in for resupply. Chief Rowe.
Sure. The county EOC is doing a great job of taking everybody's inventory every day, and they're measuring the burn rate. And once people get down to, I think 4 days is the threshold, then they will take stockpile to refresh their supply. So in an event like this, that's certainly regional, I mean, or national and globally, but as we operate on a regional level, that's the best way to allocate resources. So we have, we had a decent supply. We've done some other things. We've ordered some canisters that we can actually use with our SCBA mask. We don't want to get to that point, only because that's a little, that seems a little much in front of a patient. But if we get down to where there aren't any N95 masks left, we do have a way to protect our employees as they provide patient care.
Councilwoman Judkins has a question.
Yes, I sat in on a training that Homeland Security had for applying for some FEMA hazard mitigation grants, and I was just curious to hear if we've had a decision of whether we'll be applying for some of those, or how are we staying on top of some of those opportunities?
Yes, I'd be happy to address that. So Matthew and Joyce actually sat on a webinar on Monday with that exact information being transmitted in terms of how we can start seeking reimbursement. And Matthew, thankfully, knows this process very well with the flood reimbursement process we went through, and FEMA's using a very similar process this time around for this disaster, public health disaster as well. And so we have already started at a staff level, already started tracking those expenses, and we'll be using the city clerk's office as kind of our clearinghouse for that. And Matthew's gotten to know the FEMA folks pretty well through past processes, and he is our kind of our subject matter expert along with Joyce to start seeking submittal of reimbursements. And so we've already started noting those expenses.
Great, thanks.
Other questions, council? Okay, very good. Matthew, any other correspondence that we need to be aware of?
No, Your Honor.
Council members, anything else for the good of the order? Hearing nothing, we're going to adjourn at 7:26 p.m. Thanks, everybody.